The GTA Definitive Edition was one of the worst and most disappointing releases in Rockstar's history. On release, loyal fans paid $60 of their hard-earned cash for this.
Get yourself a beer or something.
Just look at the state of it. Years later, it's time to revisit this dog of a game and dismantle why it was such a disaster and whether any improvements have been made years after release. What went wrong? Before we dive into what the game is like now, it's important to dive into why it was such a disaster on release. Firstly, the price tag. Look at the damn price. The game costs more than your nan's life, for Christ's sake. A price tag as big as this will instantly raise expectations of what this should have been, and rightfully so. Rockstar are normally the best of the best. What could go wrong? Well, upon the build-up to release, there was a massive lack of gameplay footage and screenshots, which had people wondering what the hell was going on, and whether this was going to be a remake or just a lazy-ass remaster. When the game did finally release, fans were enraged by the lack of effort in the Definitive Edition. It was so bad that it was worse than the original releases. How is this possible, you may ask? Well, certain radio stations and songs were cut, probably due to copyright. It's still worse when compared to the original game. The bugs were just insane and far worse than the original releases. I mean, just look at the state of this. And the so-called improved graphics were utter dog. If you want nightmares tonight, look at the state of this thing. Certain character models looked worse than the state of your nan's legs. The awful visuals became a meme very quickly, and fans were shocked how piss poor it looked. Gameplay mechanics had no changes whatsoever and still felt really dated. And on top of all this, with a final kick to the bollocks, it had a price tag of $60. So it's very easy to understand why it was such a disaster on release. To Rockstar's defense, the game was developed by Grove Street Games, who are mostly known for mobile games, but it was quickly discovered that they were also hugely understaffed, which was partly the cause of this absolute disaster. So they both do share the blame to some degree. If this was a $15 release, people would have still been disappointed because it's Rockstar, but it wouldn't have been such a gigantic disaster that became a meme for ages. After all the backlash on release, what has been done to attempt to revive and improve this game? Right, hold on. I need a word with you. You see this? It's shit. I need you to help me increase this by subscribing to my channel, and you'll never miss any of my brutally honest videos. So, what has changed since release? Oh god, this is going to shock you. And for those out there who spunked $60 on this back in the day, you better have some therapy sessions lined up, because your walls are about to get holes twatted in them. After the disaster of a release and our absolute piss poor disappointment voiced through social media, something had to change. So this was fixed, where the rain and weather effects looked like it was developed on Microsoft Paint by a poor blind bastard. This would honestly give me damn headaches every time it rained. Just looking at the state of these effects, would rather stare into the can the first thing in the morning after launching a few turds into it. Once again, this was a feature that somehow looked worse when compared to the original game. But don't worry, this has now been changed, and the weather looks more reasonable when it rains. Fuck me, that voice broke. Thank God this was fixed rather quickly. So the gunfight controls used to be as piss poor as this, essentially untouched from the original game, which did feel very dated and clunky. Now, there have been some improvements and tweaks to make it more playable when in gunfight combat. It's not perfect, but at least it's now more usable and won't make you want to find the nearest piece of rope, although you still are left with gunfire sound effects that sound like this. Christ, basically sound like they were recorded on a Tamagotchi. And it doesn't stop there, because thankfully, the huge increase in nightmares around the globe took a bit of a dip, thanks to fixing the absolute freaks in this game. Character models were changed from looking like goofy goblins to somewhat human-like creatures. It's still not remotely close to being a remaster, but at least you can finally sleep in peace. And the changes pretty much stop there, which is pretty shocking to be quite honest. But But what is the Definitive Edition like to play in 2024? Well, after revisiting this game again, I can tell you it wasn't fun in the slightest, and it made my balls churn to think that people out there spent $60 on this piece of cack. It's 3 years later now, and please just look what happens if you drive into a lamppost. The damn thing just twats through the ground into hell, for Christ's sake. Ah, sod that. Just take a stroll into the countryside and get away from this bollocks. But please don't look at the enhanced grass, as it's essentially floating in the air like it's under some sort of spell from Harry Potter. It looks shit. Just forget it. Maybe you just want to take a drive around the town and be immersed in the amazing open world of San Andreas. Well, do yourself a favour and just ignore the fact that the roads are deader than a dodo, and the fact it's a goddamn ghost town until a single car crossfades like a shitty transition in Windows Movie Maker. And also try not to drive over these weird little textures on the ground that look like a fox who's had a massive shit. I think they're meant to be tyres or something, I don't know, but it's kind of distracting. Also, if you like visiting this sarcastic bell end in Clockenbell, please just ignore the brain-dead peds who are stuck like shit to a blanket because of how dumb to piss the NPCs act. I could go on, to be fair, but I think you get the point. 3 years later, the game still doesn't feel like a definitive edition, in no way, shape or form, which is shocking really. However, if you want to truly play a remastered version of San Andreas, it's possible, and the end result will be miles better compared to the definitive edition. Playing the true GTA definitive edition. Just imagine if this is what we got instead of the definitive edition. It's crazy how good this game can look if you install the correct mods. It looks far better than the definitive edition in every aspect, and you might ask why. Well, you can change anything from the shit as piss sound effects to re-listening to the classic beats on the radio that made you want to dance like some sort of bellend. There is so much you can do with this, with endless different mods. You can play a far better version of San Andreas, which could essentially turn into a complete remaster, depending on the mods you choose, which wouldn't cost you a damn penny. To see just how good you can make this game, I'd recommend checking out Dr. Mod's video. There will be a link down below. So what are your honest thoughts on the GTA Definitive Edition? Have you played it since release? And if you were one of the poor bastards who paid $60 for this, let me know who you are in the comment section down below. I feel very sorry for you. And if you would like to find out why Cyberpunk 2077 still sucks in 2024, regardless of what people say about it, make sure to click the card on screen. You don't want to miss this video. Thank you guys for watching as always, and have a great rest of your day.